Okay, so tonight we are starting in Genesis 32, where Jacob is preparing to meet Esau. Jacob also went on his way, and the angels of God met him. When Jacob saw them, he said, "This is the camp of God." So he named that place Mahanaim, which means watchtower. Jacob sent messengers ahead of him to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, the country of Edom. He instructed them, "This is what you are to say to my master Esau. Your servant Jacob says, I have been staying with Laban and have remained there till now. I have cattle and donkeys, sheep and goats, men servants and maid servants. Now I am sending this message to my Lord, that I may find favor in your eyes." When the messengers returned to Jacob, they said, "We went to your brother Esau, and now he is coming to meet you, and 400 men are with him." In great fear and distress, Jacob divided the people who were with him into two groups, and the flocks and herds and camels as well. He thought, if Esau comes and attacks one group, the group that is left may escape. Then Jacob prayed, "O God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, 'Go back to your country and to your relatives, and I will make you prosper,' I am unworthy of all the kindness and faithfulness you have shown your servant. I had only my staff when I crossed this Jordan, but now I have become two groups. Save me, I pray, from the hand of my brother Esau, for I am afraid he will come and attack me, and also the mothers with their children. But you have said, I will surely make you prosper, and will make your descendants like the sand of the sea, which cannot be counted." He spent the night there, and from what he had with him he selected a gift for his brother Esau: 200 female goats and 20 male goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 female camels and their young, 40 cows and 10 bulls, and 20 female donkeys and 10 male donkeys. He put them in the care of his servants, each herd by itself, and said to his servants, "Go ahead of me and keep some space between the herds." He instructed the one in the lead, "When my brother Esau meets you and asks, 'To whom do you belong, and where are you going, and who owns all these animals in front of you?' then you are to say, 'They belong to your servant Jacob. They are a gift sent to my lord Esau, and he is coming behind us.'" He also instructed the second, the third, and all the others who followed the herds, "You are to say the same thing to Esau when you meet him, and be sure to say, 'Your servant Jacob is coming behind us.'" For he thought, "I will pacify him with these gifts I am sending on ahead. Later when I see him, perhaps he will receive me." So Jacob's gifts went on ahead of him, but he himself spent the night in the camp. That night Jacob got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 maidservants, and his 11 sons, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. After he had sent them across the stream, he sent over all his possessions. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him till daybreak. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. Then the man said, "Let me go, for it is daybreak." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." The man asked him, "What is your name?" "Jacob," he answered. Then the man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with men and have overcome." Jacob said, "Please tell me your name." But he replied, "Why do you ask my name?" Then he blessed him there. So Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, "It is because I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." The sun rose above him as he passed Peniel, and he was limping because of his hip. Therefore, to this day the Israelites do not eat the tendon attached to the socket of the hip, because the socket of Jacob's hip was touched near the tendon. Jacob looked up, and there was Esau coming with his 400 men. So he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the 2 maidservants. He put the maidservants and their children in front, Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph in the rear. He himself went on ahead and bowed down to the ground 7 times as he approached his brother. But Esau ran to meet Jacob and embraced him. He threw his arms around his neck and kissed him, and they wept. Then Esau looked up and saw the women and children. "Who are these with you?" he asked. Jacob answered, "They are the children God has graciously given your servant." Then the maidservants and their children approached and bowed down. Next Leah and her children came and bowed down. Last of all came Joseph and Rachel, and they too bowed down. Esau asked, "What do you mean by all these droves I met?" "To find favor in your eyes, my lord," he said. But Esau said, "I already have plenty, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself." "No, please," said Jacob. "If I have found favor in your eyes, accept this gift from me. For to see your face is like seeing the face of God. Now that you have received me favorably, please accept the present that was brought to you, for God has been gracious to me, and I have all I need." And because Jacob insisted, Esau accepted it. Then Esau said, "Let us be on our way. I'll accompany you." But Jacob said to him, "My Lord knows that the children are tender, and that I must care for the ewes and cows that are nursing their young. If they are driven hard just one day, all the animals will die. So let my Lord go on ahead of his servant, while I move along slowly at the pace of the droves before me and that of the children, until I come to my Lord in Seir." Esau said, "Then let me leave some of my men with you." "But why do that?" Jacob asked. "Just let me find favor in the eyes of my Lord." So that day Esau started on his way back to Seir. Jacob, however, went to Succoth, where he built a place for himself and made shelters for his livestock. That is why the place is called Succoth. After Jacob came from Paddan Aram, he arrived safely at the city of Shechem in Canaan and camped within sight of the city. For 100 pieces of silver he bought from the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem, the plot of ground where he pitched his tent. There he set up an altar and called it El Elohe Israel, which means the God of Israel, or mighty is the God of Israel. So I wanted to talk about these 2 chapters. There's a lot going on there, just really briefly before we move forward. How dynamic. So 20 years ago, Jacob is kind of fleeing for his life from Esau because he had brutally tricked Esau twice out of his birthright and then out of basically his blessing inheritance. And I'm sure he felt wonderful with the blessing, but intense and utter guilt, and 20 years of brewing in that was living with him on his way back. And when he heard that Esau was coming to meet him, I'm sure that he was concerned about going back. I'm sure that had a hand to play in him not leaving before then. I'm thinking he probably hoped 20 years was enough of space of time to be forgiven, but still his brother had wanted to murder him, and nothing had really changed as far as the deception or the blessing. So I can see him just being really trepidatious and going back and, trying to plan and separating up his family and thinking my brother is going to come, and if he lays into us, I could lose potentially half of my family for what I've done. That had to be weighing really heavily on him. And I think it's really interesting that the way he set up the droves, I still feel bad for Leah because she's still put before Rachel um, in the onslaught of the brother coming. But she is receiving her blessing in her son Judah and the line that comes after him. So she is well managed, and God knew that Esau's heart had changed. And I love the way that Jacob sets up the lines of gifts for his brother to apologize and soften his heart, just in case his brother's heart has not been softened. These are huge financial blessings that he's sending to Esau to kind of make reparation there. And I love when Esau finally comes to him. Esau himself has been so blessed that he's just like, why are you giving me all of this? All is forgiven. I have been blessed. I have what I need. Keep what you're sending. I don't need it. I just needed you. I think that's amazing. He loved his brother. He loved his brother in the end, and it didn't matter what happened. God's got perfect timing, and I think that's why God met him in the night and was the physical embodiment of the wrestling that was going on in Jacob's mind and probably in his life right that moment of what he was doing. And he was just able to just wrestle it out with God and work through it and get that blessing there, the blessing over the next day when his brother was going to come. And of course, the necessary change in his name when God is making huge movements in someone's life. In the Bible, he makes a name change. Monikers were big as far as the significance of what the name meant. Mothers would give their children names that they of personality traits that they wanted them to have, or life goals that they wanted them to have, or something that they wanted them to embody. And God definitely honors this tradition by saying, here's a new chapter in your life, and this is what you're going to be called. And Israel means he struggles with God, and definitely it's been a struggling relationship. All of our relationships, we could all have that same name, but we don't. But we all struggle with our walk at times. Anyway. But then the best thing happens. Esau meets him, and he's just like, it's wonderful. It's fine, Jacob. I don't care. I just want you back in my life. And Jacob is so relieved and so happy. I could just see all of them, their faces walking up and seeing 400 men, which easily would have just decimated their entire family. I can just see them walking up with the long faces and hunched and fearful, and seeing Esau running up and just bear hugging his brother and just swinging him around and saying, I'm so glad that you're coming back into my life. Let's fix this for family. And I can just see like all of them smiling and just so happy and relief, and the glad and the whispering, and just the joy that came instantly realizing that everything was going to be okay. But Jacob wisely does step away from letting his brother immediately have like that big brother watching over me thing with all of his men in his camp, and he put space between them still because you never know. You never know. I'm sure Esau had completely forgiven him, but they did have really large camps with lots of animals, and it would have eventually become a sore spot with those animals kind of intruding on each other. So just a really beautiful thing. Important that his family is healed. God healed his family, And God also made that necessary name change to create the next portion of his life that's coming up. Let's see. All right, and then chapter 34. Now Dinah, the daughter of Leah, had born to Jacob, went out to visit the women of the land. When Shechem, son of Hamor, the Hivite, the ruler of that area, saw her, he took her and violated her. His heart was drawn to Dinah, daughter of Jacob, and he loved the girl and spoke tenderly to her. And Shechem said to his father Hamor, "Get me this girl as my wife." When Jacob heard that his daughter Dinah had been defiled, his sons were in the middle of the fields with his livestock, so he kept quiet about it until they came home. Then Shechem's father Hamor went out to talk with Jacob. Now Jacob's sons had come in from the field as soon as they heard what had happened. They were filled with grief and fury because Shechem had done a disgraceful thing in Israel by lying with Jacob's daughter, a thing that should not be done. But Hamor said to them, "My son Shechem has his heart set on your daughter. Please give her to him as his wife. Intermarry with us, give us your daughters, and take our daughters for yourselves. You can settle among us, the land is open to you. Live in it, trade in it, and acquire property in it." Then Shechem said to Dinah's father and brothers, "Let me find favor in your eyes, and I will give you whatever you ask. Make the price for the bride and the gift I am to bring as great as you like, and I'll pay whatever you ask me. Only give me the girl as my wife." Because their sister Dinah had been defiled, Jacob's sons replied deceitfully as they spoke to Shechem and his father Hamor. They said to them, "We can't do such a thing. We can't give our sister to a man who is not circumcised. That would be a disgrace on us. We will give our consent to you on one condition only, that you become like us by circumcising all your males. Then we will give you our daughters and take your daughters for ourselves. We'll settle among you and become one people with you. But if you will not agree to be circumcised, we'll take our sister and go." Their proposal seemed good to Hamor and his son Shechem. The young man, who was the most honored of all his father's household, lost no time in doing what they said, because he was delighted with Jacob's daughter. So Hamor and his son Shechem went to the gate of their city to speak to the fellow townsmen. "These men are friendly toward us," they said. "Let them live in our land and trade in it. The land has plenty of room for them. We can marry their daughters, and they can marry ours. But the men will consent to live with us as one people, only on the condition that our males be circumcised, as they themselves are. Won't their livestock, their property, and all their animals become ours? So let us give our consent to them, and they will settle among us." All the men who went out of the city gate agreed with Hamor and his son Shechem, and every male in the city was circumcised. 3 days later, while all of them were still in pain, 2 of Jacob's sons, Simon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, took their swords and attacked the unsuspecting city, killing every male. They put Hamor and his son Shechem to the sword, and took Dinah from Shechem's house and left. The sons of Jacob came upon the dead bodies and looted the city where their sister had been defiled. They seized their flocks and herds and donkeys and everything else of theirs in the city and out in the fields. They carried off all their wealth and all their women and children, taking as plunder everything in the houses. Then Jacob said to Simon and Levi, "You have brought trouble on me by making me a stench to the Canaanites and Perizzites, the people living in this land. We are few in number, and if they join forces against me and attack me, I and my household will be destroyed." But they replied, "Should he have treated our sister like a prostitute?" And that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what he was doing. He may have been professing love for Dinah, but basically he did not offer marriage up front to Dinah. he defiled her. Now, it doesn't clearly say if it was them having some sort of tryst. It seems more like it was a forced situation, but marriage was not offered up front. And just because he became enamored with her, in the end, he basically went to her father and her household, which, if he had been an honorable man, he would have done that before he ever touched her, and ever did anything. Would have worked out so much better, I believe, than being circumcised and murdered. But if he had gone to the father, but he's going to the father now and the brothers and saying, let me pay for her whatever you ask for. So put a price on your daughter. Put a price on your daughter's virginity, which I took forcefully. So basically put a prostitution price on her for what I've done and for what I'll continue to do after we're married. It never does say that she's enamored with him. Never said she loves him. And I really love that her brother stepped up forward for her and her honor, and kind of took care of the situation, and went and they gained wealth from it. But these people that they went, I don't feel bad for the township either, because they were all agreeing to this because they see this gentleman who is pretty wealthy. He's got tons of animals, tons of maidservants, tons of men servants. He's very blessed, and they're just wanting to kind of absorb all of that. So they're going to go along with it, not because they're so happy with Hammer and his son and they want to help him and this lovely young couple. The situation is much different, obviously. They're wanting to absorb this wealth, and Shechem is wanting to basically have this girl as his wife by going about it completely wrong. All of this is completely wrong, and it's not allowed to stand. So that's wonderful. Let's see. So 35. Jacob then God said to Jacob, "Go up to Bethel and settle there, and build an altar there to God, who appeared to you when you were fleeing from your brother Esau." So Jacob said to his household and to all who were with him, "Get rid of the foreign gods you have with you, and purify yourselves and change your clothes. Then come, let us go up to Bethel, where I will build an altar to God, who answered me in the day of my own distress, and who had been with me wherever I have gone." So they gave Jacob all the foreign gods they had and the rings in their ears, and Jacob buried them under the oak at Shechem. Then they set out, and the terror of God fell upon the towns all around them, so that no one pursued them. Jacob and all the people with him came to Luz, that is Bethel, in the land of Canaan. There he built an altar, and he called the place El Bethel, because it was there that God revealed himself to him when he was fleeing from his brother. Now Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died and was buried under the oak below Bethel. So it was named Allon-Bacuth. After Jacob returned from Paddan Aram, God appeared to him again and blessed him. God said to him, "Your name is Jacob, but you will no longer be called Jacob. Your name will be Israel." So he named him Israel. And God said to him, "I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and increase in number. A nation and a community of nations will come from you, and kings will come from your body. The land I gave to Abraham and Isaac, I also give to you, and I will give this land to your descendants after you." Then God went up from him at the place where he had talked with him. Jacob set up a stone pillar at the place where God had talked with him, and he poured out a drink offering on it. He also poured oil on it. Jacob called the place where God had talked with him Bethel. Then they moved on from Bethel, While they were still some distance from Ephrath, Rachel began to give birth and had great difficulty. And as she was having great difficulty in childbirth, the midwife said to her, "Don't be afraid, for you have another son." As she breathed her last, for she was dying, she named her son Benoni, but his father named him Benjamin. So Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. Over her tomb Jacob set up a pillar, and to this day that pillar marks Rachel's tomb. Israel moved on again and pitched his tent beyond Migdal Eder. While Israel was living in that region, Reuben went in and slept with his father's concubine Bilhah, and Israel heard of it. Jacob had 12 sons. The sons of Leah were Reuben, the firstborn of Jacob, Simon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. The sons of Rachel were Joseph and Benjamin. The sons of Rachel's maidservant Bilhah, Dan and Naphtali. The sons of Leah's maidservant is Zilpah, Gad, and Asher. These were the sons of Jacob who were born to him in Paddan Aram. Jacob came home to his father Isaac in Mamre, where Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, where Abram and Isaac had stayed. Isaac lived 180 years. Then he breathed his last and died, and was gathered to his people, old and full of years. And his sons Esau and Jacob buried him. So Rachel has passed away. That had to be absolutely devastating for Jacob, who loved her so much his entire life and had worked so hard to gain her hand. And definitely her two sons were his favorites, basically. But all of his sons were good sons, up to a point. As we'll see later on. But so Isaac has passed and Rachel has passed, and Jacob is now Israel and moving into his new life. Just so much going on here, so many blessings happening, and so many sad things as well, but mainly the wonderful blessing of a family coming together, and just the lots of changes going on. I feel bad for Dinah, but she was redeemed out of that situation, kind of just passed by her. So yeah, basically just a little bit of history going on, a little bit of change going on, some necessary changes. God does some amazing things. I love to see history unfold and see what he does with circumstances. God never left their walk, never left them moving. He stayed with them. He kept the blessing going, and all of his promises he kept. I strongly say to you that if you are thinking of turning your life over to God, that there is an amazing amount of wonder that comes along with it. I have not read the Bible before in such a way. It's insane. It's insane to me how things stand out, how beautiful they are, how intense they are, because I get a very clear picture reading this of these caravans of people moving along, and all these children and families, and Jacob just leaving one situation where he was downtrodden, and he's coming out of it victorious, and now he's got to be fearful again. His entire life has been trying to just get his life started, and he's got a family and got all these things going, but really his life has been in limbo for 20 plus years, and it's still in limbo because he doesn't have any idea how his own family member, who he just really waylaid at the very young age in his life and wanted to murder him, like this is coming at him with an army full of men, and how terrifying that was, and not knowing how that would turn out. And then it turns into this huge blessing where everything is forgiven and he can start to make his life. And and then his daughter gets defiled and his sons murder an entire town full of somewhat deserving people, and make him a stench in the land. So basically everyone would have heard what happened. And while Dinah's brothers certainly loved her and wanted to watch out for her, you never know how the rest of the land felt about something like that happening for one girl. So he definitely had an opportunity to once again be concerned about his family's safety and welfare. And the thing is he's going through all of this, but God is with him and God is walking with him. And God is telling him all along, even though all these things are happening, which are huge and life-threatening, and he never knows what's going to go on, except for the fact that the only thing he knows for sure, as long as he trusts it, is that God has made him this promise to get him there, to get him settled, and to make his descendants like sand on the beach, just so numerous, and to give him that entire land, to fill that land with his descendants. He's got that promise and he can stand on that. And you can see him concerned about things, and just like anyone else, you're going along, and I know it's really easy to look at Christians and think, oh, you're perfect, and you don't have any worries or whatever anymore because all of this. And it's the only difference is that we have a God who gives us these amazing promises, and we need to claim them because they are ours. As soon as we say, Jesus, I'm asking you into my heart, I want you in my life, I accept you as my Savior, you're the God of my life, please forgive me for my sins, I need you. As soon as you say that and you accept the beginning of that relationship, these promises are yours as well. To have God walk beside you, to stand firm with you, to hold you when you are feeling weak. If you've wronged your family, if you've wronged a friend, if you've been wronged, if you are unloved, if you're overlooked, if you're violated, if you are ransomed, if you're treated as a prostitute, all of these things, God is walking through all of these things. And he says, look, it's life. It's going to be tough. I am with you through all of this. And I can't make it perfect, and I can't make it completely easy every step of the way, or you won't grow. And I know that these things are awful. I am going through them too. And he does. He went through them with his own son. His son was God on earth and went through all of these things that all of us go through. Temptations and hunger and despair and grief and loneliness and betrayal. Everything that we go through, and some things that none of us will ever have to go through. Thank you, Jesus. He's there. He's there with every single step. He was there with Dinah. He was there with Jacob, now Israel. He was there with Esau. He didn't not continue to bless Esau. He took him out and made a nation of him. So he didn't even need all the droves of blessings that Jacob was kind of trying to bribe him with. which was that fear. We're all a little bit of Peter, stepping out of the boat in faith and having to have Jesus reach down and grab us pretty quick. So I just want to hope that you have a very blessed day. I'm praying that if you have not already, you accept Jesus into your heart. Every day it becomes more and more important. You are not granted, every single minute of your life is a blessing and a gift. You're not guaranteed any minute beyond the one you're in. You're not even guaranteed the one you're in. You could end the minute with the end of your life. You never know. You never know when that is going to happen. The end of your life is going to happen. And I pray to God, if you are listening to this, that you make that decision just to let him into your heart. Because the very least thing that's going to happen is a fundamental life change. He comes in and he seals up all the cracks, and he fills all the broken places with gold, and he heals and redeems and changes and blesses and holds your hand and walks with you and absolutely saves you. And I know it sounds, I know I've been on the other side of that. It sounds crazy. Here you are believing in an invisible fantasy. I completely understand. I completely understand how that sounds. But there is secular proof of God, of Jesus, of historical. All these people we're reading about, there is proof of them having existed. But beyond that, I have never seen anything in my life, and I have dabbled in a lot of things that changed me, that fundamentally changed who I am. And not only that, I spent 45 years being broken to the point where I wanted to die. And nothing else fixed that. And I tried a lot of things. I tried the whole meditation route, the being kind route, the partying route, the just trying to live my life route, the other religions route, the whole Buddhism, I've tried a lot of things. And nothing worked. Nothing filled up the empty, the huge, huge empty in there. And I was broken, completely broken. And all I had to do was say, God, I need you to help me change my life. And he did. 6 months later, my life is completely changed. A year and a half later, I am unrecognizable to the person I was before that. And I'm no longer broken. And I am completely healed. My life is 180 degrees from where it was at, going in the right direction. I just encourage you to, if you're thinking about it at all, make that change, because it will absolutely change your life for the better. It will absolutely change your life for the better. What have you got to lose? You have nothing to lose. You have zero to lose. Your mind is telling you, and definitely the devil is telling you, that if you accept Jesus into your heart, people are going to think you're crazy. You're not going to be able to do everything that you want to do. You're not going to be able to have all the fun that you want to have. Let me tell you about your fun. Your fun of partying, that's stale before it even really gets going. I mean, are you really finding that much fun after the 400th night of getting drunk? Are you having a real good party after all the partners that you've had? Are you being fulfilled by all these things? Are they making you feel wonderful and blessed the next day? Are they putting a constant smile on your face where you're just like, can you turn these to these things and have them support you? Are these things that support your life? Are these things that better your life? If you're honest with yourself, are these the things that are making your life better? So why are you clinging to them? Because as long as the devil can convince you that that's how you're having your fun, and that's how you're cool, and that's how you're supposed to be one of the cool kids, one of the cool guys. And I mean, I just remember that, like, wanting to be part of this group and accepted, this fantasy group out there that's supposed to accept you when you act like that. Well, let me tell you, that group is broken. It's a broken group. It's not working. It doesn't work. Anyway, I hope that you have a wonderful day. I hope you have an amazing day. I hope your day is blessed. I hope you accept Jesus Christ into your heart. You are very loved. And I will, hopefully, by the grace of God, be back again.